October 2nd, 2014 at 9 p.m. Central European Time, and this is Turn 2 episode number 37 with Frodan, no nibs today, he's in China, and our two featured guests, Numberguy and Greensheep, two finalists for BlizzCon later this year. We're going to be talking about all kinds of cool stuff from these guys' journeys from the very beginning of Hearthstone all the way to BlizzCon. We'll be talking about the North American qualifiers that we're having this weekend, as well as some other tournaments that are happening like WCA, OGN, and some thoughts about regional tournaments and metagame. So it's going to be a packed show. Hope you guys are enjoying it, and I hope you guys are comfortable. Sorry about last week. We didn't have time for the show because DreamHack was kind of chaotic. Everyone was in the middle of preparing for the big show, so we didn't have time. But this week we're back, and hopefully we'll be able to continue the trend. So the way we try to do this show, I know it's both of you guys' first time, is we have each guest introduce themselves, talk about their background, what team they are on, where they're from, their age, etc. And so we'll go to Greensheep first. James, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone who's watching?
Well, my name's James Lowe, also known as Greensheep. I play for Team Dignitas, and I'm 16 years old, and I qualify for BlizzCon.
Absolutely. So, James, talk about your background in gaming and Hearthstone. You're one of the youngest players. I mean, I met Numberguy like the day of the first day of the event. I'm like, man, you must be the youngest person here. And then I met you, a guy who's even younger. So, talk to me about your gaming experience and background.
Well, before I played Hearthstone, I played a bit of League of Legends. I got to Platinum, but then Hearthstone came along, so I switched to that. Mm-hmm. Other game-wise, I used to play a lot of Pokemon TCG. I played in a few World Championships, and I came second at Nationals once.
Oh, cool. So you do have some competitive card game background, and that's definitely carried over. We'll talk more about your road to BlizzCon a little bit more, but can you talk about how you got picked up on Team Dignitas and how it's kind of gone for you since then? Is it any different from before you were on a team? Is it now that you have more practice partners? Talk a little bit about that.
Well, before I was on Team Dignitas, I was on a team called Innovatio.fr, a French organization with Legendara, Naboot, and Stumpan. Mm-hmm. Then I met a guy called Cookmysock, who's also my teammate on Ladder. I added him because he's a good player, and we started talking. Then I realized he's from the UK as well. And one day he came up to me and told me that Dignitas might be looking for a Hearthstone team. So he gave me OD's Skype. We talked a bit. I recommended my team, but unfortunately he was only looking for UK players. And I conferred with my team, and they were happy, and they wanted me to join Dignitas. So here I am on Dignitas with Blackout and Cookmysock.
Yep, with Blackout, we'll talk a little bit more about your preparation for the team a little bit. I want to get to know Philip a little bit more. So, Numberguy, please introduce yourself the same way that Greensheep just did.
Okay, so my name is Philip, and my nickname is Numberguy, and I used to play for Team Innovation, and I just qualified for BlizzCon. I'm
awesome.
17 years old.
Yeah, I was about to ask you. You're 17,
yeah,
so talk to me more about
old,
that.
So I'm only a little bit older than Greensheep. Before I played Hearthstone, I played Magic the Gathering, and I also played the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. And I was never really that good at it because I was extremely young compared to all my competitors. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention that those TCGs, one of the big limiting factors when you're so young is the fact that it costs a lot of money to build these really good decks. And you guys, this is like your first semblance of any kind of job or income, right? I mean, I don't think you guys have held many occupations in the past. It makes me feel so old. I can't believe it. I'm 24, and I consider myself in the prime time of my life, and you guys don't even know what floppy disks are, which blows my mind.
I know what a floppy disk are.
Oh yeah, but you've never used it. You never had to take it out and slide over and check the filaments busted or whatnot. That's how I used to play video games through these CD-ROM drives and whatnot. Anyways, that's a time in the past. That was a century ago. Let's talk about this century and talk about some Hearthstone stuff. So the first topic of the day, of course, is the road to BlizzCon for Europe, which we had a fantastic tournament, probably the best produced Hearthstone tournament yet. At least from my perspective. I've done a lot of them, and I feel I really got to tip my cap to DreamHack. They did an excellent job, and from the camera's perspective, from the way they set up the lights, the way they had the flow of the broadcast going. It was a little bit long. I know you guys had to endure some insanely long broadcast days. It was long for me too, but we had a really good time, and I think hands down this was the best tournament experience for me personally. Now I know that both of you guys, you haven't been to many events. In fact, you did go to DreamHack Summer, I believe, Greensheep, but this was also the first tournament that you got featured on like a big stage, correct?
Yeah. I lost in the BYOC of Summer quite early on, but my old teammate Naboot made it, so I was quite happy.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He got pretty far. So talk to me about the first tournament experience for you guys. I know a lot of people who watch the show are still trying to get into Hearthstone, and they're even trying to compete. So talk to me about overcoming the nerves. You both were sitting actually right next to each other the first day of the broadcast, and Artosis and I and Saviz walked over to you guys and asked if you guys were nervous at all, and you guys kind of gave off a lot of signs that you were. Talk to me about the first event jitters and how you guys were able to deal with it. Greensheep, you go first.
Well, yeah, I was pretty nervous, and I was even more nervous knowing I was playing against Tice, like first game. And then I went onto Twitch and saw that like 60,000 people were watching, and that even made me even more nervous. So I was just like freaking out before the game. And when I played the game, I went 2-1 down at the beginning, and that even made me more even nervous. So yeah, I could say I was pretty nervous there. But like the event was amazing, and like all the people were really friendly, so it was a great time.
Oh, thank you. I do consider myself to be a friendly person. Greensheep, talk to me about like how you're able to transition all that to improve yourself on the last day. The first day you admitted you made several mistakes where you probably would have played it differently. And then on the last day, it seemed like you were able to play, for the most part, according to game plan. I mean, maybe a damage here or things like that you could have optimized, but for the most part, you played pretty solid. So what was the transition like for being able to translate your success into the tournament setting by the final day to qualify for BlizzCon?
Well, after the first day and after I beat Tice, I felt a lot of pressure like going off me, because I knew that Tice would be the most known player and probably the most watched match, other than the other two. So, like, the second game, I felt a bit calmer, and I just focused on my plays more, and I just didn't think about the people watching. I just thought I was playing, like, another ladder game, and same with the finals, really. I just concentrated on my opponent and just, like, zoned out the crowd, like I was at home.
Well, I guess luckily for you, if we can just be honest for a second, there wasn't that big of a crowd on day 3 to really up the ante that much. Yeah. Other than just like the fire cannons and the steam smoke guns, I think that was the most intimidating thing, honestly, about that stage. Numberguy, talk to me a little bit about your group stage journey all the way through too, because you were saying that you thought you were facing the hardest opponent in the tournament in the first round, your teammate, or former teammate, excuse me.
Yeah, like I was going into the group stage with a mindset of this group is going to be ridiculously hard, and like I don't think I even believed that I could win my first match. Like I was already in my mind I had already lost the game before we even started, and I was super nervous in the studio, and then after I won I just felt great, and Friday I was super nervous as well, but once we started playing, I just started to feel confident. I felt more confident in my play, and I managed to win my group.
Cool. So then how does the preparation, I mean, you prepare with Nyria, obviously, to a certain extent, but then preparing against the rest of the top 16, there's a lot of unknown guys like Quar and Max in your group. Did you prepare for them at all? Were you just playing things that you were comfortable with and you feel like is a solid choice in the metagame?
Well, I knew I would play Nyria in the first round, so I just focused on the first round first, and then prepared 100% for Nyria. And then after I have played Nyria, I watched the other games, and then I went home, back to the hotel. And at the hotel, I pretty much prepared to play against Koa, because I just wanted to beat him so I can win, so I could win my group, and then I wouldn't have to play a relegation match.
Yeah, speaking of Quar, by the way, were you surprised that he ended up going all of the way? Because aside from you two, we also had Colento and Quar, and everyone knows everyone has an opinion on whether or not Colento deserves that spot in the top four. Everyone has probably unanimously agreed that he's one of the best players there. But Quar seems to be one of those mixed bag of emotions. He's cool because he represents like the guy who's unknown that can go all the way. But at the same time, people feel like, oh yeah, there's guys like Naria or even Tice who couldn't make it because he had to play against Colento. Give me some thoughts about Quar. Is he a big surprise in your book, or did you see it coming?
I have never heard anything about him before, but I think he played pretty well. Like he made a couple of misplays, but I think we all really did. And at the end of the day, he had some solid decks which were able to carry him to BlizzCon.
Okay, so you think his deck preparation really carried him? I think it's another way to be rewarded for good skill there. So, Greensheep, do you agree with this? I mean, Quar was the big surprise of the tournament. Or do you want to even talk about other stories of who were surprising performances, whether good or bad, in your opinion?
Well, I was actually rooming with Quar, and I felt he was like he didn't actually practice back at the hotel. Like, he didn't have a computer or anything. So after seeing him play, I'm actually really impressed that I could play that well without any practice at the event. I guess maybe a practice a load beforehand, but he didn't like do any research or any practice during the event. Wow. While I was like there all day just researching, practicing. I was like so yeah, he surprised me a lot. I admit that maybe he made a few misplays during the second day when he was against was it Max? But overall, I think his play was pretty solid, and against Mr. Yago, he played really well as well. So I guess he deserved his spot.
You know, I actually, that's a really interesting topic that I want to talk about, because as much as Quar was a surprise story, a lot of people were very taken aback by the deck building of Mr. Yagut, even getting some pros immediately coming to me afterwards and saying, wow, that deck's just bad. Like the 100 deck, for example, they're like, that deck's bad. How do you expect it to perform well? But yet it took a game off of some really good fortunate draws, like Hunter's Mark on Ancient War into Black Knight on second Ancient of War, so it worked out perfectly. Do you give me some opinions on Mr. Yagut's deck building here? He was the one that was shocking people left and right with, you know, all of the unique choices that he made. Numberguy, you go first here.
Yeah. I actually think his Hunter deck was pretty cool. Like, there was, I think it made perfectly sense, at least in my world. I would never have brought multi-shot myself, but I can definitely see why it's in the deck. And the same with Acer Drake, I can definitely see why you would bring Acer Drake. And I definitely think, I don't think his Hunter deck was bad at all, and I think it won against Druid like it was supposed to do. So and the double brawl warrior, like, he played the matchup a bit weird in my opinion, but it ended out working out for him, and I don't think double brawl warrior is a bad thing. So I think his very unique deck building actually was his biggest strength going into this this tournament.
Well, do you agree with that, Greensheep? Did you like Mr. Yagut's deck building choices here?
Well, I think a lot of people on ladder know Mr. Yagut as mainly a miracle player, since he, I think 2 seasons ago, got rank 1 and stayed rank 1 until the last day where he was passed by Tice with just his miracle deck with Senjin Shieldmaster, which was quite weird. And this time he brought a really weird miracle again, like with Ken and Cold Bloods. Like that surprised me a lot. I was like, is this tempo rogue or is this like miracle? And it turned out to be a miracle, and I think it actually worked pretty well for him. And his Hunter deck really surprised me as well. Like taking multi-shot, I would probably never take that multi-shot, as Numberguy said, but he did play. His deck actually worked well and actually beat the Druid deck that it was intended to beat. So I'm really impressed by his deck building, and I think he's a really good player.
Yeah, and you know, I kind of said this. I've said this several times throughout the broadcast, but I want to say it again for people who are listening didn't get a chance to watch a tournament. that hyped from Temple Storm, one of the best players in North America, seated in the top 2 for this weekend's event. He kept telling the rest of Temple Storm, like, Mr. Yagut was one of the best players that he laddered against, and that he thinks he's a great player, that we all should watch out for him. This is way before we knew that Reynad would play him in the first round to get to prepare for him, which is another story of in itself. The fact that Reynad brought also his own mix of decks. He brought an aggressive rogue deck, which I don't know its place in the metagame. Everyone told me that because death rattles are, haunted creepers and sludge belches, it's like impossible to get so many chargers through and have things stick on the board considering how much weak minions you have. Do you think that was a fault of Reynad? Do you feel like his thinking was aligned, but he just didn't get good draws or favorable matchups based off of players bringing certain classes? Like, it seemed like he ran into every single warrior player in the tournament. What's your opinion on aggro rogue being brought to tournament play right now at Greensheep?
Well, I think Reynad expected a bit more, like a few more miracle decks, because that's what aggro rogues intended just to beat miracle. He picked it against Mr. Yagut's miracle, and it actually worked. So I guess he was right in thinking like that and bringing an aggro rogue type of deck. I think it really surprised a lot of people, like, because he ran was it Dancing Swords, which, like, I don't think anyone played. So, but in the end, it didn't work out for him that well, since the warrior decks just wrecked it.
Numberguy, do you have any follow-up to that, or do you feel like...
Yeah, I don't think that Reynad expected any control warrior at all. Like, I didn't expect any control warrior at all. So, and I think Reynad was going with the same line of thought, and then the aggro rogue deck can really more or less beat everything. I was thinking the same thing going into this tournament, but then I practiced with the aggro rogue deck, a deck very similar to the one that Reynad was bringing, and I found out that it just didn't work for me. I just don't think the deck is strong enough, and I think if Reynad maybe had used more time on his deck selection, maybe he would have came to the same conclusion that the deck might look good on paper, but isn't that great in reality.
Well, Reynad actually brought it to WCA earlier today, and he lost against ECOP 0-2, and the aggro rogue was also in his repertoire there. But unfortunately, it was also because he got some pretty bad draws. I think his opening hand was like Leroy Shadow Step and like Lotheb, and that's not what you want as the aggro rogue in your opening hand. Well, I guess we're going to move on from that and talk a little bit more about EU as a whole. It's going to be 4 seeds along with the final 16 spots in the road to BlizzCon, and we're trying to highlight more players. Last time we had Chalky on talking a little about North America and previewing the event this weekend, which we'll talk about in just a second. The last thing I want to ask you guys to wrap up this segment is give me some overall impressions from your first event, like any fun stories from behind the scenes, or your favorite moment aside from qualifying for the final.
Well, I guess eating meatballs with Ecot was pretty fun. Well, he just came up with like a giant tub of meatballs, and I guess we just ate meatballs like the whole morning.
This is the last day, right? I remember.
Yeah. Like, he just brought out a whole tub of meatballs, and I was like, hey, go ahead, let's eat meatballs. I was like, okay.
Wow.
I think my favorite...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, no,
yeah. I think my favorite moment was eating sushi with life codes. I've never eaten sushi before, so that was a new experience. Also, it was pretty funny at breakfast when Reynad tried to convince me and life codes that Dancing Sword is a good card, and both me and life codes had the opinion of, no, it isn't.
Oh man, I wish I sat in on that conversation, or maybe recorded it to play on turn 2. That must have been really good. I guess I'll ask Reynad again one day if we ever get him on the show, if he stops appearing every single tournament. Well, we had a really fun time. I want to thank again DreamHack guys for putting on a really good show. They took good care of the players. I mean, I think you guys are kind of spoiled because this is some of your first events, but tournaments weren't always like this, where players have to figure out their own hotels and arrangements, flights and whatnot. So Blizzard and DreamHack did a really good job taking care of the players, at least from my perspective. And it should be a good one for this weekend too, which is what we're going to talk about right now. The America Regionals. I keep calling it NA because of every other game. But America Regionals in New York Hammerstein Ballroom will be taking place on October 5th and 6th this weekend. We do have some immediate news to report. 2 players are reporting that they can't attend the event, Chalk and Stas from the Philippines, as they were denied by visas. And instead, Protohype and Ant will be replacing them, the top 2 players from the round of 128 Swiss who didn't get in. Now, interestingly to note, Greensheep and Quar are 2 of the players who substituted in for the players that weren't able to go, and they ended up going to BlizzCon. So maybe Protohype and Ant will be the ones who end up getting 2 of the 4 spots, and that would be another hilarious story to finish out the 8 seeds from the West. So the North America will have a lot of fun. What are the things that you're looking forward to the most? Because I know you guys were talking a lot about watching this event. You're really excited. Greensheep, you're the one that were super hyped coming to this weekend.
Well, I just want to see, like, because Strive Crow hasn't been, like, streaming a lot, I just want to see if he's going to pull out anything special, like when he pulled out that Shaman deck in, was it I Am Shenzhen? I want to see if he pulls out something strange like that again and just, like, wrecks everyone.
Well, you can watch him at WCA, although I don't think any of his matches were streamed. But, you know, Strive Crow is one of the most mysterious players. No, he hasn't yet. They've only played a few. But he is one of the most mysterious players, for sure. Numberguy, talk to me about some of the things that you're excited about, too. Who's the player that you're looking out for that people might not know, or maybe it's one of the favorites that we already do know?
I think I'm actually looking out for the favorites. I'm really interested in seeing what decks Hype will bring. I always think that Hype brings some really interesting decks. Also, I'm really interested in seeing if he'll bring the same decks at Tides of Time, because they are very different players, but they're both playing on Team Tempo Storm, and maybe that's a reason why they should bring the same decks. I'm also really interested to see if That's Admirable will bring Paladin again. I know he talked about how he thinks Paladin is super strong, and I really want to see his Paladin deck perform well again.
Admirable is so fun to talk to about Hearthstone because he just challenges so many concepts that I thought were the opposite way. He would always be like, oh yeah, Paladin's favored against Zoo. It's like, oh yeah, Paladin kills this deck. Oh, Paladin kills that deck. And he just thinks Paladin kills everything that isn't Miracle Rogue. And I'm like, bro, you have to be careful with that. But at the same time, I can't argue with 5-0 results, right? Like, he's the one who went through the round of 28 Swiss pretty easily, which was definitely surprising for me. I do wanted to ask you guys to pick 4 players to go through here. And I know it's going to be really difficult to pick people that aren't the favorites because it might be, but let's just say you pick 3 guys who are well known, and then you pick 1 guy who's like that will surprise everybody who people might not know much about. So let's give a top 4 each. I'll participate too. Numberguy, you go first.
Okay, I think my top 4 would be Chucky, Tides of Time, Hyped, and probably Twisted. Twisted is a really cool guy, really good player. So he would be my surprise.
So, yeah, talk to me more about Twisted then. Like, what do you know about him? And he's on Coast, right? Yeah, I
think correctly. He's on Coast. I know he's a really strong player. Like, I've played him a couple of times in tournaments, and we had some really close matches, and that's why I would like it to see him go. I think he's a really talented player who could perform really well.
Yeah, and he's performed pretty well in some of the weekly cups, or more of the tournaments that aren't streamed in high profile with the tens of thousands of viewers. But Twisted's been around for a while, and he is the one preparing with Chalky, so maybe they'll come out with really strong decks like they did for Phase 1. All right, so give me your top 4 here, Greensheep.
It's really hard to pick a top 4, but I guess out of the favorites, either Tides of Time, Hyped, and probably Chucky as well. But for like the dark horses, I have a few. Like, I know a really good ladder player that I've seen a lot, like Tarai. I think he'll do pretty well, as well as Jab and Twisted. I reckon one of them 3 will clinch the final spot.
Gotcha. So you kind of cheated and you picked 6. Totally cool. I mean, there's the really good field of players, so it's hard. Yeah. My 4, 2 slots automatically go to my teammates, Hyped and Tides. I think they're 2 of the best players in the world, of course. I want to kind of throw my lot in here with Firebat. I think he's a really strong player that people underestimate solely because they see his tournament performances that often don't line up like perfectly, whether it's Deck Wars or I believe we saw some of his games in some other tournaments as well, like the Hearth Wars. But Firebat's actually like a really intelligent deck builder because he has a strong understanding of the game. So I want to see Firebat do well because I've gotten the chance to talk to him and pick his brain. And the kid's really smart, and he also like plays like a crap ton of Hearthstone. Like he plays so much, and I feel like hard work should be rewarded because I do see some of the players here. Or not here, sorry. I do see some players from time to time take it easy and try to coast in, but he's not one of those guys. So I'm going to toss in my lot with Firebat. And the last guy, I wanted to pick Jab as well, but you already picked him, so I'm going to have to go with someone else. I'm going to go with D2 from DKMR because I know he's a pretty strong player. And, I think the DKMR guys have a really strong practice group. I get to talk to Faramir quite often, and it seems like they have a good set of heads on shoulders. So I think D2 will come out swinging. And I think the more unknown you are coming to this tournament, the more of an advantage you have because there's so much information for guys like Strifecrow, Hyped and Tides because they've been playing a lot. And that's only going to be working against you unless you're able to completely surprise people from the get-go and play like Murloc Druid and 3-0 everybody in the group stages. You guys agree or disagree with me here? Not about the Murloc Druid, but about the top 4 I chose.
No, I agree with you. I think everyone who's going there is going to be like extremely good, and the unknown players is definitely going to have an advantage by being unknown. But the known players is also going to have an advantage because they're more experienced and maybe they can handle the nerves and the pressure better than the unknown players.
Hey, if you were to give a tip to some of the newer players who we haven't seen before, maybe like Tarai, Jab, etc., they haven't really performed on the big stage yet. Dear Jason and Stunner, we don't know these guys. What would you give them as their first piece of advice here, Numberguy?
I would say they should just relax and try and enjoy it. Like, as soon as you enjoy being at a stage and enjoy being on stream, everything will just come to you easy and you'll play a lot better.
All right. Well, Greensheep, what about you?
Yeah, pretty much the same. I just say, like, pretend you're playing a ladder game. Like, just try as hard as you can to win, but just pretend it's a ladder game so the pressure's relieved from yourself.
Yeah, I think the pressure really is understated a lot, and it clouds your judgment, especially if you make some pretty bad misplays, which happen to everybody. And sometimes it matters, sometimes it doesn't, like Quard double innervating and then hero powering when he thought he had enough mana to play Black Knight. It didn't really matter at that stage, but a lot of times it can rattle you. So hopefully these players can stay calm. The event's going to be really fun. It's going to be casted by myself as well as Doa and Reels, who just recently joined Blizzard. And it's free to attend for anybody who wants to go on Sunday, or sorry, I believe it's on Monday, the final day, where if you are the first 1,500 people, you get a free set of Hearthstone booster packs to open. So it's about 300 gold worth because you get 3 packs. You can get some good stuff and play in this pay-to-win game and play some Control Warrior, right? No?
Yeah.
Okay, so that fell pretty flat.
Yeah.
I admit my delivery wasn't that strong, but the idea is that you guys should go and attend. You can find more information at eslgaming.com. All right, let's talk a little bit about a region that people don't really know much about. We always talk about like Americas and Europe and the good players, but we don't know too much about like Korea and China. So let's talk really quickly about OGN and WCA. Did you guys watch any of the broadcasts today, whether it was the OGN finals for BlizzCon or WCA? Greensheep?
Well, I had school until like 4 hours ago, so unfortunately I couldn't watch anything. But I'm gonna be sure to watch the VOD since they're gonna be likely to be my up and coming opponents. So I'll definitely check that out. But I think Numberguy knows a bit more than me.
All right,
Yeah.
so help me out here, Number Guy.
Yeah, I got to watch the WCA stream, and that was really well. I was really impressed by the Chinese players. I always thought that the Chinese players was not that good, but they actually surprised me and performed really well. I also got to watch some OTN and see my future opponents at BlizzCon, and so far I'm not too scared, but there's a long time to BlizzCon, and I don't want to be overconfident. I'm going to respect them and prepare against them.
Yeah, I wasn't impressed. I wasn't terribly impressed by Rainy Hour and Kranich, even though they did advance through it. It just felt like Korea's still kind of behind. But I was told some interesting bit of information the other day. I wasn't sure. I can't remember who it was, but they said that the Koreans don't like winning with a deck the same way twice. Like that really bothers them for some reason. Like they want to win in okay, so if we back up, there's like card game theory where you believe that you're like one of three kinds of players, right? There's like the player that plays to win. There's a player that plays who doesn't care about winning but wants to win gloriously. So they have the Divine Spirit Inner Fire combo. It doesn't care as long as they have like a 40-40 Cabal Shadow Priest or something. And then there's the players who want to create very innovative decks and win really like with finesse and be like all fancy and stuff, and you like the Mr. Yagut in a way, right? Build like really weird decks, and then a lot of Korean players are that third type of player I just described. That like they don't like abusing the really common ones. At least in the OGN Hearthstone Masters tournament. And when I heard that, I was like really weirded out because I was like, oh well, in Hearthstone it's all about like making sure you play the best decks and play it really well. But it seems like there's a lot of understanding where the Koreans are like, oh, like I don't feel like I want to play like Zoo and win like with Zoo every single time, and that like prevents them from playing, and that's why they play some like weird inferior decks. I think Artosis is the one who's told me this. It's like they said, "Oh, I'll bring Druid because if I win, it'll impress more people with Druid as opposed to like Handlock or something." So it's a weird mentality, but I don't know if that applies to these guys either.
Yeah, I think it's the wrong philosophy to have. I think at a tournament like BlizzCon, you should have the philosophy, I'm going to win, so I'm going to play the best decks. You might not like to play aggro, but if aggro is the best decks, then you should bring 3 aggro decks. It's all about winning, and there's nothing. You shouldn't say I don't like to play Zoo, so I shouldn't play it. You should play whatever is the strongest.
Yeah, I feel like the same as Numberguy. I feel like if you're gonna playing like a major tournament, like try to qualify for BlizzCon, I think it's best to play the best decks and the decks are going to do well, even though maybe you don't like playing them. I mean, if you want to test out decks and like innovate new decks, there's always ladder. But like when everything's on the line, I think you just have to play the best decks and just win any way you can.
Yeah, you'd mentioned Greensheep that you like aggro, and yet your decks weren't really aggro at all. The most aggressive deck you could push out was the Shaman because of how you're able to be really aggressive with some combos. But even then, Shaman's not really known as an aggressive deck. It's mid-range at best. So, you showed that you were adapting even if your preferred play style wasn't extremely strong in your eyes.
Yeah.
Right?
Like, I think the Shaman was my most comfortable deck. Like I think I did my best on the Shaman because it's more like an aggro deck. Like I'm used to playing like aggro rogue, aggro like paladin, anything that I can like fit like a wolf rider in, I'll play it.
God, you're the worst type of ladder player to face. God.
Yeah, I just go face all the time. But I know that this tournament was very important, like to get your name out there and like everything. So I knew I had to bring some really late game decks, even though I really don't like playing them because I hate playing really long, like drawn out games. Like if you saw the Frezar versus Cupcake game, those are the games I really don't like to play, where you're like going to fall asleep, waiting for your opponent to do their move. But I had to do it because I wanted to win.
Oh man, the Cupcake versus Frezar series. God. For people who don't know and they're listening on podcast from the VODs, there was a game where Cupcake, he was playing Shaman, and then Frezar was playing Priest, if I recall correctly. And people know that this is a very difficult matchup for Shaman, just because of like every single answer Priest has just completely destroys you. So somewhere around like turn 8 or 9, I want to say like it was only like 12 or 13 cards deep into the deck. Cupcake decides to just start hero power passing with like 6 mana floating and just like doing nothing else. And of course, Priest can't really do much either because, Priest can't do much either because he doesn't have like the circle of healing combos or whatever. So he just ended up passing. And then there was like this weird scenario where neither player for like 5 or 6 turns did anything. And they just kept drawing one card and then passing. And we eventually found out that Cupcake, starting from that point on, was trying to play a fatigue game with like 16 cards remaining in his deck, which is quite hilarious because like that's the extent of which Shaman has to go sometimes to beat Priest. But I know exactly what you mean. It can feel like a bit of a snooze.
Frodan literally fell asleep during that game, and me and Yagut were like dozing off just because we were only there because we wanted to like watch the Kalento game, and then we had to sit through this long-winded game. I was like, oh, can I just go already?
Yeah, I decided to go back to the hotel because of that game.
And rightfully so, because that was around 2 a.m. and we still had yet to hit Group D. But I think that was not even like the qualifying match for the group, right? That was the second to like that was for the oh no, it was sorry.
It was to qualify.
Yeah. My apologies, because I forgot that Frezar played Reynan right before that. Dude, the broadcast was so long, I totally forgot what's going on.
Yeah. Live coaches games weren't even streamed, but I guess that's for the best.
Yeah, that series was long too, from what I heard. Well, anyways, we're getting sidetracked back into the EU qualifiers. Just to kind of wrap up WCA and OGN. WCA had a little bit of chaos from what I've heard. Like Trump was supposed to go and cast with Crip. But he missed his flight. Some people accused him of like not getting his visa and saying, I'm American, I can go wherever I want. But that's not the case. Trump actually had his visa and he was able to go. It's just that he miscounted the days, I believe, of like he thought he was flying one day later but missed his flight. So it's kind of unfortunate. Either way, this shouldn't prevent you guys from watching because WCA is the highest prize pool outside of BlizzCon by a fair margin. It's got $190,000 on the line, where the winner gets basically $100,000. And I mean, you're just playing a card game, so it's some pretty good cash. And they've also got some of your most favorite players, whether it's Strifecrow, RDU, Amaz, and Tides, who all seem to be in one group. And then you have like Reynad and Dark Onyx and Forsen. So it's a good list of guys. I encourage you guys to check it out. But I do want to say one more thing before we close it out. Did you watch Kungan versus Hunter Ming, the Handlock versus Hunter game?
I didn't watch it, but I heard about the misplays. Like it was Hunter Ming who was playing Handlock, and I think Kungan had a trap up. It was quite obviously snake trap because Hunter Ming actually tested for every other trap, and I'm pretty sure he knew it was snake trap. And he could have played anything else. He could have done anything else possible, but he used his Molten Giant to attack into the 3/2 Knife Juggler, which activated the snake traps, and that actually gave Kungan lethal.
Yeah, so what happened was Handlock was at 8 health. Kungan had double kill command in hand, but the Handlock player activated Lotheb, so you can't play 2 kill commands. So by all means, Kungan should have died, because Snake Trap can't do anything unless you attack a minion into your opponent's minion. So all the Handlock player had to do, Hunter Ming, was just attack face and make sure to taunt up. But instead, he just took his 8/8 Molten Giant and killed off the Knife Juggler, which already in itself is... and then one of the Knife Jugglers hit the face, and he was at 7, so only one kill command was okay. And the funny thing is too, there were no beasts on the field, so because he activated Snake Trap, he actually gave him the 2 extra damage from kill command to finish the game. I mean, Kungan was laughing so hard because he was like, well, I shouldn't have won that game. And I think Crip made the best comment. He said, well, Kungan was supposed to go 0-3 in this series, but he somehow came out 1-2.
Yeah.
Overall, though, I think WCA was a fun time, and the internet issues aside, you guys should check out the rest of it today. And then OGN, of course, we kind of just talked a little bit about it. Did you guys get to see the deck list at all? I want to kind of bring up one thing before we move on from OGN, is that people seem to be catching on to Magic Wind's Reincarnate Shaman that uses Kel'Thuzad as well as a lot of other Death Rattle creatures in their deck. Do you guys get to see some of the games and give some thoughts about the deck list overall?
Yeah, I definitely are going to test out that deck list on ladder tomorrow. It actually looked pretty good from my point of view. So I'm definitely going to see if this is a solid deck or if it's just another Shaman deck.
Okay, so you still kind of reserved in judgment. Greensheep, did you see the deck in action at all?
I want to withhold judgment until I have actually played the deck myself and practiced with the deck myself.
Yeah. I have some thoughts about it, but I wanted to hear what you guys had to say first. Greensheep, did you get to test/see the deck at all in action?
I actually haven't seen the deck. I'm trying to find it now. Could like you link it me or something?
Yeah. So basically, the general gist of it is that he took out like Doomhammer and started going for more Death Rattle centric combos. He runs 2 copies of Reincarnate, takes out Lightning Bolts, like similar to Kalento, right? But instead of Ancestral Spirit, he runs Reincarnate, and then he uses like Sylvanas and Kel'Thuzad to do a bunch of combos on the board and stick on it. So it's a really interesting mix of stuff. But I wasn't sure if you guys had any opinions on it. I'm trying to find the deck list right now. I saw it on Liquid Hearth.
Well, I tried out some like Reincarnate like shenanigans when the card was first introduced from Nax, but I didn't actually find a consistent list. So I'll be quite surprised if there's actually a consistent list. Right, let's have a look now.
Yeah, so I linked it to you guys in the chat. So it's a really interesting one because a lot of people said Reincarnate was a very gimmicky card and that it was just like another... It's like basically Wind Fury in a sense, where by the time you have application of using it, you're probably winning pretty dominantly anyways. But I think the way Magic Wind uses this card, or he encourages other players to, because he wasn't the one playing it. At OGN, a lot of other people were playing his version of it, was that you try to just use it to heal up or collect value immediately. And then Lightning Bolt is kind of like a dead card in the metagame because there's so many Death Rattles that the 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 damage with spell power doesn't even fully clear something as often as you'd like it to. So you go for more of a board-centric approach. And of course, you still have like fun ways to combo, like, turn 10, you reincarnate your Alakir, so you get like maximum burst or like a full clear against aggro essentially by having that ability. So it's an interesting deck. I encourage you to check it out, Greensheep, and tell me what you think, because you are a player who likes or who used Shaman a lot. I'm not sure if Shaman is one of your favorite classes here.
Yeah, I can see a lot of interesting combos that can go on, like Kel'Thuzad, and then play some Death Rattle minion and reincarnate it, and you still get the minion back at the end of the turn. That's pretty crazy. So I'll probably check out and play it tomorrow on ladder or something.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of weak to the Undertaker hunters, but, at the same time, there are ways you can fight against it, like an early Nerubian Egg with Rockbiter or Flame Tongue, so it's got a chance. It's really fun, though. It's one of the most fun times I've had recently playing Hearthstone, so I encourage you to check it out. In the meantime, while you guys are having fun, I realized the deck list wasn't shown on stream, so I'll link in the chat before I go. But if anybody is listening on the audio, make sure to check it out at liquidhearth.com. It's Magic Wind's mid-range Shaman. Let's talk a little bit about botting. It seems to be the new topic, because while we're in the region of Asia, about 600 Chinese botters were banned, or maybe they're all the same botter and he has 600 accounts. I don't know, but this kind of sparked people's interest because for a long time there were a lot of posts and feeds about people complaining about botters, whether it's Shaman bot or Zoo bots or whatever bots are coming out with the most face roll decks. People are saying that botting was a problem, and now that Blizzard's kind of taking action against it, people are feeling vindicated for their feelings. Now, I want to ask you guys, do you feel like botting is a problem worth addressing as a high priority? Of course, you want to take care of it. You don't want to ruin player experience. But is it such a big deal? Greensheep, you go first.
Well, I think botting is like really bad, but I think like why would you even bot? I don't get the point of botting, because if you're going to bot, then you might as well just play the game, since like playing the game, you get enjoyment out of playing the game. And if you're just botting for like the golden portraits and stuff, if you don't even play the game, then what's the point of having a golden portrait, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Well, unless some people are trying to take a shortcut, right? Say they're going to work and they just they just turn on their PC and then they queue up the bot to just play while they're going, and they go home and then they can actually just play regular games. In fact, it was very surprising for me because I've faced, like in the past week or so, I've faced people who I recognize their account names because I've played them multiple times in the past, but they're playing, like a bot is playing for them, but I recognize their username. I'm like, you didn't bot like a month ago. Like, why are you botting right now? And it seems like people are doing it as a shortcut, so that way, when they actually do play, they can enjoy benefits of gold or, I guess having a cool golden portrait. I'm not sure. That's the
I guess, but like if you did something like that, you wouldn't feel good about it. Like, you just feel guilty, and like every time you play the game, you'll just know that you haven't earned like everything. Like, some of the stuff you've earned on this account wasn't actually earned by you, but by a bot, and I just feel that's wrong.
Oh man, you are definitely new to the internet, my friend, if you think people care about that stuff. I mean, you just showed that you were a 16 for sure. People on the internet do not care about that stuff, generally speaking. Not everyone has as much integrity as you do. Numberguy, you were about to say something before I rudely interrupted.
Yeah, I actually played ladder this morning, and I think about like 30% of my matches was against bots in the beginnings, which really sucked because it made a sucky stream because I just steamrolled them every single time, but they just took like 1 minute for all their turns and it got extremely boring. So it the bots really destroyed my stream this morning. But I also know that once I hit high legend, they won't be there anymore. So for me, it won't be a problem, but maybe for more casual players that still have to play against bots, I know it's really sucky to play bots, they will still have the problem. So I really wish that Blizzard will do something to completely remove the bots.
People actually said that bots are a good indication that of an easy deck or class to play. And I always thought Shaman was a little bit more. It was more on the complicated side compared to some of the easy mechanics of like Mage, for example. On paper, seems really simple, right? Just damage and spells, draw cards. I thought overload management was a little bit on the trickier side. But do you think this is a good representation of Shaman is actually easy to play and even a bot can do it?
No, I don't think so.
Is that true?
No, the bots, I could just steamroll them. The Shaman bots, I could just steamroll them with handlock because they would keep overloading themselves the turn I wanted to play the Giant. So on that note, they just keep making mistakes into mistakes, which made it extremely easy for me just to beat them every single time.
I actually think Shaman's one of the harder classes to play. If you were to make a bot, I think Zoo would be a much easier thing because you just play down your minions and trade efficiently and just go face. But I guess they must have a way to easily program these Shaman bots.
Well, I think it's because they're also playing a different kind of Shaman that doesn't require some of the complex decisions that the class can give you, as opposed to like, you know, like the idea of the bots is that they're playing just the strongest minion and using the best removal every single turn, and then just slamming down Siege Giant and making you cry every single time you're trying to, you know, do anything kind of complicated. So I agree with you guys. I think it's a little unfair to peg Shaman as an easy class just because of these bots. But man, it does make me pretty mad when these guys take forever to trade down. There's like 5 minions. He plays Bloodlust, and the entire time I die, it takes like a minute and a half. So I don't appreciate it, botters. Speed it up. At least speed it up, right? That's the big thing that people care about. I don't know. I don't really care too much about the AI. I don't want it to take forever to die or to trade down a board. So, we just want to let people know that the Blizzard is after you, botters, and you know, your time is limited. Although I'm sure that won't stop people from botting. It's just so silly. Like, Hearthstone's not a game where you expect botters, right? Like, in other games where there's a higher barrier to entry, you can completely understand, especially MMOs or action RTS. But Hearthstone is like, oh gosh, I don't know. Because what's the point? Like, if you're botting to like sell the account, shouldn't the other person just like pay that money for packs anyways? So I don't understand like why you would want to bot other than just like the fact that you're a lazy person and you want to. I don't know. Like
it's much more efficient to like bot MMOs and get like money if you sell the account or something. I don't get why you're botting Hearthstone.
It doesn't feel as ludicrous of a opportunity compared to some other things that you might benefit off of grinding endless hours and farming. But yeah, to each person his own. Who cares? It's not my life. And in the meantime, we'll focus on a little bit more positive stuff. We can finish to talk about bots, unless you guys wanted to go on one more rant. We wanted to talk about the October tournament madness. There's a lot of tournaments coming up, and we just want to remind people about what's to come. This is one of the busiest months yet for Hearthstone, which is, you know, a very good thing to show that it's a healthy tournament scene. I believe this weekend, after this weekend, with the Hammerstein Baltimore event and WCA, we have the VIA game House Cup in Sweden that's been announced with a lot of like great players. RDU, Nimsh, Tides will all be there in Sweden, and it's supposed to be very similar to how Millennium Cup did their event in France back a couple months ago, where Amaz was able to beat Calento in the finals. I know qualifiers did go on. Did either of you guys try to go through the qualifiers? I don't see your name on the participants list, so
no,
I wasn't
it
sure
was
if you
on
guys
a Friday and I had school, so I don't think I participated in either of them. I don't know about Numberguy.
Yeah, I was one game short of
yikes,
qualifying. So
who'd you lose to here?
I lost to, I think, Exial. I think, I'm not too sure.
Okay. I don't see his name here. Actually, now that we have I have the player list in front of me and all the groups. Can you give me a little rundown of some of these more unknown players? Like, do you know anything about Logan or?
Yeah, Logan is a really strong Greece player. I know Logan.
I've seen Logan on ladder a lot. I don't know much about him other than that.
He's a really strong player, likes to play control heavy decks. Also recognize some other names from ladder, and yeah, they're pretty solid.
Yeah, I want to give a shout out to Alesh, who's my boy from Czech Republic. I don't know if he's still on Isuba, but he was playing for them, and I met him a few times, and he's a really cool guy. Actually, he has a really fun stream too. So he's one of my favorite players to watch that not like tens of thousands of people watch his stream. You should check him out if you have the time. Also, Faramir is my boy too. Go ahead, Greensheep.
Yeah, I met Alesh on ladder a lot, and I watched his stream quite a bit, and I think he's a really nice guy. And you should all like check him out. I'm rooting for him.
Yeah, I think I was charmed by his very feeble attempt to make Ancestral Spirit Shaman work. A few months ago at the C-Story Cup, or not the C-Story, the Take TV Invitational, where like he didn't win, I think, but the one game that he actually got the combo off him, he like jumped out of his seat. He's like, yes, I got double Molten Giant, Ancestral Spirits, and like Earth Elementals all in the same turn. It was a really cool game. I think you guys should check it out. So either way, you guys should watch this tournament. It should be a fun time. And it's going to be pretty good. But in my personal opinion, I don't want to take away anything from the Swedish guys, but Sea Story Cup 2 is going to be the week after. Now, that's going to be the tournament that I think is going to be so fun because people who watch StarCraft 2 know or hear about Home Story Cup and how it's like a perfect environment to just have laid-back casual gaming, get back to the roots of why we love esports in the first place. And you get to go inside of a house or an apartment where Dennis does an excellent job just showing gamers their natural environment and having like the games casted by the pros, making fun of the pros, drinking beers, playing poker, having fun. So I'm going to be there. It's going to be so much fun. The first one was great, and I look forward to the second one. And I believe the qualifiers have been going on, correct, guys? And I don't know who's actually gotten through, though. Do you have the info at all of like who got through the qualifiers?
Yeah, it's Yak, Skip, Silhan, Icarus, Frake, Dorgan,
oh, man.
and I don't know who got through from Dark and Cookie, but one of those players.
Okay. Now, they did a Swiss qualifier, correct?
Yeah, they did an 8-round Swiss, and every round in Swiss was a best of one.
Oh, best of one, though.
Yeah,
well,
and then they took the 8 best players from Swiss and 8 invited players, and they played against each other in a best of 3 single elimination bracket with no ban system. So it was a pretty tough format.
Okay, well, at least they did have qualifying spots compared to some other tournaments. Either way, I think they're trying to open it up without making it too chaotic, because I know that having like thousands of players running Swiss tournaments can be really tricky. Although I really feel like best of one Swiss just is completely random, though. I'm not sure how you guys feel about that process.
Yeah, I feel best of one Swiss is just like whoever picks the counter deck wins, basically. Like you just pick a random deck and like whatever.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's really about picking a white deck and picking a solid deck, and then maybe having a bit of luck with your solid deck. Generally, I think everything that isn't best of 5 is silly, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
And like best of ones in other games feel just as silly too. Like, take StarCraft, for example, which people peg as probably the most mechanically demanding game currently in the esports circuit. You can make a justification for some other stuff, but StarCraft is one of the ones where, like, the longer you play definitely shows like who's a stronger player. But even best of one in StarCraft, people feel like what the hell's wrong with you? Like, people can just cheese and the series is over and you move on. And Hearthstone is way more random than that, so it feels like you're really I don't want to use any expletive words here, but it really feels like you're firing from the hip in terms of what kind of players you'll get. It just could be anybody, but at the same time, that's what makes it fun. And I do recognize like Skip from MYM, he's a great player, and Silhan from Isuba, who did great at Gentleman Cup. These two guys, it's cool that they get an opportunity as well. And the truth is, the amount of invites for tournaments needs to go down. And that's the reality of the current situation in the Hearthstone scene. I think 75% invite is too much, even though some people feel like that's okay. Even 50% I feel like is still too much. But I'm glad that people are starting to introduce more open slots. It's just kind of sad for anybody like you guys who are trying to break out. And even after a good performance at BlizzCon Finals, it seems like you guys aren't getting those invites yet.
Yeah.
So let's bust open the beer and start drinking our sorrows away. I can't do that. You guys are too young.
The WCA was like all invites, and I thought there should have been at least been like 4 or like 8 open qualifier slots, because as you said, it was the second biggest tournament after BlizzCon in order of prize pool. So I was pretty sad that I couldn't actually have a chance of trying to get into that.
All right. Well, next one they will have open qualifiers. That's what they said. At least that's what the guy who's the PR front of WCA said. don't know what to expect all the time with the organizations down the line, but I think they'll give an opportunity for qualifiers in the future. Speaking of open nature tournaments, there's going to be one after Seat Story Cup called the Gamers Origin on October 25th and 26th. Nimsh told me to remind people about this because it's like a completely open event to anybody who wants to play with 500 people plus. And it's going to be cool. Maz will be there as well. So check out more if you want to be in the local area. I believe it's in Paris. Check it out. It's going to be a fun time. Gamer Origins number 2.
Yep. Me and Blackout will also be there. I don't know about Numberguy as well.
Man.
I think he's
Blackout's showing up to a tournament?
Yeah, Blackout. First
Whoa. Wow.
You'll actually get to see who he is now.
I thought Blackout was always like a conglomeration of like the saltiest Hearthstone players, and that's why he never actually competed anymore. Because they can't reveal his true identity that he's nobody. The week after Gamers Origin will be... Just kidding, Black. I know he's in chat. He's going to be like, Frodan hates me. Screw you, turn 2. Don't worry, Blackout. Much love.
Yeah, I won't be going. I will be playing another tournament that week. Another big another big online tournament that week.
Which one?
The Lucky Draw Invitational. I'm going to be playing that one.
Oh, that's right. That's right. In fact, talk about that event real quick because I don't have it on my notes here.
Oh, well, the Lucky Draw Invitational, it's going to be... it's the same guy who hosted the wellplayed.org HyperX Invitational. Going to be the same sponsors, and it will have... I'm not sure I have a player list, but I know I'll be playing it. I know Tide will be playing it. I think as well RDU will be playing it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's, the scene is going to be really, really tough, and there's going to be some extremely good players playing it.
Yeah, no doubt. That sounds really stacked. Which reminds me that we want to talk about innovation and kind of how things have developed since then, because I believe those guys wanted to go more of a team event. But of course, innovation seems to have some players leaking here. And you told me right before the show that you've also recently decided to leave innovation along with Toyota and a few other guys. So go ahead and talk to me a little bit about what's happened with the current status and why you're leaving.
Okay, so the current status is that Team 8 Innovation have disbanded. Basically, before DreamHack, Toyota and Carlos, 2 players on Team Innovation, mentioned that we were going to mentioned that they were not longer going to be on the team, but they would still help me prepare for DreamHack. And then they helped me prepare for DreamHack, and I did really well at DreamHack. And then after DreamHack, I had to decide if I still wanted to stick to the 4-man roster with Team Innovation, or if I wanted to join a new team. So what we figured out was that I could no longer... we figured out that Toyota and Carlos, they helped me prepare so much for DreamHack Stockholm, and DreamHack Stockholm, and that really just made me realize how important they are for me as teammates and how big a part of success they have been for me. So I basically decided that I wanted to stay in a team together with Carlos. Toyota will step down as a player, and instead he will be taking the manager position, and me and Carlos will be in team together, and Behirat will also join us, and we'll be looking to probably add another player pretty soon, hopefully. But as far as Naria and Cypher goes, I wish them the best of luck, but unfortunately we can no longer be in team together. So
there's no bad blood between you and former teammates, just you decided to join the guys who left because they helped you the most with preparing for tournaments. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that correct?
Yeah. There's no bad blood between me, Cypher, and Iria. We are all really cool friends, and we still chat a lot. It's just I want to do what's best for me, and I want make this decision. I think that can give me the best chances of winning BlizzCon, because that's going to be my next focus.
It's really a shame. Like, Innovation made some really big waves in the past month. Nyria, of course, performing really well in a couple of tournaments. and you qualifying for BlizzCon, Toyota able to get top 2 at the HyperX Invitational, and then it seems like all the momentum has completely dropped and you're disbanding. It's actually quite tragic, considering that now, like, there was another team that I thought could challenge like Tempo Storm and Cloud9 and MYM and I guess Dignitas as some of the top teams. I'm not meaning to just be rude here, but it's like I didn't really expect Dignitas to be a top team here. But you've recently performed well, so it's just like a shame that innovation just completely goes their separate ways. But I guess that means some of the best free agents are on the market at the moment.
Yeah, and it also means that Naria will get the opportunity he deserves to find himself a really great team, and hopefully Cypher can also find some teammates, and he will finally be able to make a name for himself, and he won't stand in the shadow of me and Naria. So I think this is the best for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. So, good luck to all the rest of the innovation guys, and let me know if anything changes for you guys, Numberguy.
Yeah, also
getting picked up by a team.
I have a name for our new team. So the team is called Nova. It's a name that one of our friends Kirby came up with. So we are going to be organizationless. So we won't have organization to play under, and we won't have a sponsor. But we will still be a team, and we'll still boot camp together.
Okay, Nova. So you guys are like just a clan of friends, essentially. And
we are more like a testing group, but we will also be having a boot camp, so that's going to be awesome.
I mean, sometimes that's all you need as well. There's people who are able to go solo, but they do have their own practice groups. I know like Amaz for a while was like the only player on Liquid for some time, but at the same time he still went to search for some practice partners that helped him succeed in those periods of a couple months where he was winning everything. So, the practice partners, in my opinion, are just as important, if not more, than the sponsors or like the big names. So I think you'll be okay, man. You got a good group of guys. The last thing we wanted to talk about before we go to the Q&A section is to discuss that Brad has announced, I believe just like an hour ago or two, that he's retiring from competitive Hearthstone. This is fresh off the press for me, so I don't really have too many questions or topics to talk about, but as far as I know, Brad was one of their ace players on DKMR, correct? And so this must be a pretty big blow to the team. Do you have any insight on this, Greensheep, at all?
Well, same as you, I just learned about it like a few hours ago. I just went on Ghosty Gamers and just saw this article. I was pretty shocked about him actually retiring, because I know Brad's like one of DKMR's best players, if not their ace player. So I'm actually really shocked, because I think he had a very promising Hearthstone career in front of him.
Yeah, he's quoted that. Oh, go ahead, Numberguy.
Yeah, but I also think that this just shows how hard it is to make a name for yourself in Hearthstone. Like, Brad is an amazing player, and it's still like he says it was due to real life. That he wanted to pursue something in real life, but I still think that he's like an amazing player, and I'm really surprised he didn't make it. But that just shows how hard it is to become a professional Hearthstone player right now.
Yeah, he had like an insane streak at the DKMR Invitational, which is basically another version of the King of the Hill for NESL. He had some ridiculous win percentage that was going on. He was like 16-3 or something equivalent to that. And then, of course, in Prismatic Cup #1, he had an insane run there too, going all the way to the finals against Gara. So he had a couple of really strong performances. Kind of sad that he can't continue that, but you know what? If a man wants to go back to reality and recognize that sometimes Hearthstone doesn't pay the bills, I can get behind that, and taking responsibility is often the right way to go. So Brad, will miss you. Don't be a stranger, and who knows, maybe you'll miss it and you'll come back. You won't be gone for long. I imagine if there's an expansion coming out, a lot of the players who retire early end up coming back and like, oh yeah, like maybe I can do this again and stuff. So hopefully it won't be too far out. We are going to open up the floor in just a second for Q&A. So go ahead and start typing in questions in the Twitch chat for Numberguy or Greensheep or myself. and it can be about anything, whether it's fun or serious. As long it's up to us to choose whether or not we want to answer the questions. While we do that, I want to do some other homework we want to do, as well as some final bits of news and shout outs. So we want to congratulate 6-0 for winning the DKMR Cup, who I believe it was a really strong field of players, including like Impact and a few other dudes. And 6-0 was able to take that. So congrats to him. We also want to congratulate Noxious for joining Complexity, a very well-storied franchise within esports. And then we also have learned that Show has left Root in the past week or so, and he'll be looking for a new team. And Show is a great player, whether from StarCraft 2 or now even in Hearthstone, where he recently hit #1 on Legend with his cool warrior deck. So hopefully Show finds a new home soon, and we can talk about that in the coming time. We also want to remind you guys that there's still coaching going on with iHeartU, but be aware that it is tournament season, so it's difficult to nail down some of these players' schedules, but they are still following up on it. And if you want to receive coaching in the chaotic metagame that is currently existing, you can go to iHeartU.com/coaching and use the coupon code that's on the bottom right of the screen, turn237 for 10% off. And then there's a lot of questions that people ask about RSS and iTunes feed for this podcast. Just make sure to go to iHeartU.com and click on the new links that redirect you to the right one, because we're trying to organize all the podcasts that the Nerdsy Network does. So make sure to refresh your by any chance watching the YouTube VOD and wondering what happened to that. All right, and with that, that's all the thing I want to say. So do either of you guys see a question in the chat that you want to tackle first here?
Yeah, there's a guy here that asks, Numberguy, how do you feel about Miracle in the current meta and best of 5 with one deck ban system? So I'm going to answer that. Basically, I feel that Miracle is extremely strong if everyone is bringing control decks. If everyone is bringing aggro decks, it will be extremely weak. But most tournament players prefer control over aggro because control decks generally is more consistent. And therefore, Miracle Rogue is a really great pick in that best of 5. And if you can ban Handlock, which is probably Miracle Rogue's worst matchup, then you will definitely stand really strong. Also, another reason why Miracle Rogue is so strong right now is definitely because people started playing decks that Miracle Rogue is good against.
That is true. People feel like they can get away with pretty greedy decks, and Miracle does keep them accountable sometimes until they drop Lotheb. But then even if you drop Lotheb, they just conceal for 6 mana. And so they're still good. Greensheep, did you want to finish out that point, or is there a question you wanted to take on?
Well, Miracle, I've recently been testing like a Miracle with Shade of Naxxramas, and I really like playing Shade of Naxxramas. I think it's like a really cool card, and like since Leroy's gone, I think Shade is an okay replacement because you just play down Shade like turn 3, leave it there for the whole game, and like you can use it like as a finisher.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's like you said, you just leave it there, and then you have like a target for Cold Blood sometime later, and profit. And it's just pretty ridiculous because Shade of Naxxramas. I feel like it's sometimes so useless, especially in the late game, but a lot of times when I underestimate it, it's actually impressive as a card. All right, I have a question here. What's the best, this is from Sneeze7, want to give a shout out to him. He says, what is the best counter against Priest apart from Handlock? I feel like this is one of the hardest decks to counter for me personally. Numberguy, why don't you go? You're the one who played a lot of Priest.
I feel Priest is pretty good. Like, it's one of those decks who has like 50% chance against everything, but it's definitely pretty bad against Handlock because Handlock has the Shadow of Death. Priest only has 2 Shadow of Deaths, and like after that you can't really deal with anything. Also, Twilight Drake has the 4 HP, which really is the great spot for despite the amount of attack that Priest can't deal with, like 3 attack. 3 attack. Priest can share with pain, and 5 attack they can share with death, but 4 attack they can't do anything about. So that's why I think that Priest will have a hard time in that matchup. But then again, if you add in a silence, or if you thought steal like a Siphon Soul, then everything can be turned, and Priest actually might be able to win that matchup.
The question is, though, how do you beat Priest not using handlock? He's asking the opposite way.
Oh,
how do you beat Priest without using handlock?
Okay. I think I misunderstood the question then. How you beat Priest? Basically, you're going to establish board control, and once you have the board control, you're going to rush them down. Like, for example, if you're playing the Hunter, you want to play like turn 5 Belcher, turn 6 Highmane, and then once you have that, you just want to go all phase, and then wash your opponents down. Because what Priests can't do is they can't clear and heal at the same time. They need to either focus on healing or focus on clearing. So if you first establish the board and then go phase, then you'll stand a lot better chance than if you try to just rush them down or if you try to just establish the board.
All right. Greensheep, do you have any contributions to that on how to beat Priest? Maybe not even just using Hunter.
I think Priest is actually really strong right now, and Handlock, of course, is like the hardest counter to it, especially with Jiraxis, since you keep pumping out the 6/6s, and there's only 2 deaths in Priest. But other than that, yeah, I think Hunter's really strong. Even though Hunter's been nerfed now, it's still on ladder, and there's still like lots of variations of decks with it, because of the high amount of burst Hunter can put down, Priest just can't handle it. And I also think Paladin is okay against it, but as I said, I hate playing the Paladin versus Priest because it always goes to fatigue game. So I probably just recommend the Hunter. Just playing Hunter against Priest is good.
And I would say that Druid is also a pretty solid choice, generally speaking. It can give, especially if you play like a really fast Druid that uses like Spectre Knights, just kind of watch the Priest cry trying to deal with the Spectre Knight if you manage to get like an Innervate down. But at the same time, that Druid deck does have some noticeable weaknesses that can often fall flat for the very same reason that Token Druid did in the previous metagame. So be careful with using that deck. There's another question here. Speaking of Druid, Orange Mars 2000 asks, what is the state of Druid in the current metagame? So, Numberguy, you also used some Druid to success. In fact, that was probably the most important deck for you in the tournament, considering it got you to BlizzCon. Talk to me about the state of Druid currently. I guess either for both ladder and the tournament.
Okay, so in tournament, there's some really good Druid decks. There is the Ramp Druid, which is extremely strong because it's an overall really solid deck, and it doesn't lose terrible to aggro, and it has a chance against every control deck. On ladder, there is the Wham Double Savage War Double Force of Nature Druid deck, which is also a really strong Druid deck that can deal well with all other kind of mid-range deck and with control decks, but it really suffers against like full-out face rush aggro decks, which I met a lot of this morning. So when I chose what deck to ladder with, I just couldn't get myself, like, I love Druid, but I couldn't get myself to pick it because I felt like it was really terrible for ladder this morning.
Yeah, I can get behind that too. Greensheep, what do you think?
I also brought like a Druid deck which was actually double combo to the qualifiers, but unfortunately it was banned every single game, so I didn't get a chance to play that. But I've tested that deck out, and I think that my certain Druid list, which is basically like Ramp Druid, but without the like heavy taunters like Ancient of War and just like double combo, like I try to like turn 2 Wild Growth into like Yeti and then just play like strong minions like Ken and stuff like that, and just end out the game with the Savage Roar combo. I think that's really strong against like the current decks, the current mid-range / late game decks, but I think it's better in tournaments than on ladder, since on ladder like I've been seeing a lot of Hunter, even though it has been nerfed, and I've been seeing a lot of Zoo actually and Shaman, which I don't think Druid does that well against.
Yeah, talk about difficulties dealing with Shaman bot. Druid struggle. Especially if you're not playing BGH, you're going to be in a lot of trouble to deal with those Sea Giants, so be careful on ladder with Druid for sure. Yakos asks, what do you think is the next sleeper card in Naxxramas? As in, not necessarily Undertaker or Lotheb level of power, but a card that you think will start being played more and recognized as good.
Well, that's actually quite a tricky question.
I
think
there such
Spectral Knight.
Spectral Knight.
Yeah, I agree with Spectral Knight. I think it's a really strong card, really hard to deal with. And if you play it together with like a Sunfur Protector, it can just shut down every deck.
Yeah, especially like I think it's better in tournaments now because like very few people are going to like have the guts to run like an aggro deck. I know Defishu did, but if you like start taunting up the Spectral Knight when you're like playing as a priest or like as anything else that's really spell heavy, like how are you meant to deal with that? Priest relies on just like spells to like clear everything. You can't def it. Like you've got like if you taunt it with Varvis, you got 5/7 there that you can't def. And you just have to run minions in. Like that's so hard to deal with as a priest.
Yeah, but then at the same time, if you taunt up Spectral Knight, people are already starting to run Black Knight more commonly because of all the sludge belchers. So you want to be careful with that. So don't always think that taunting is the answer. But you're absolutely correct. Like against Hunter for a while, like just taunt up Spectral Knight, they can't do anything whatsoever.
Yeah, Hunter's mark's useless.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, I like that answer for sure. Let's see if I can take another question here. There's a question. What do you guys like to do outside of Hearthstone for hobbies? Greensheep and Numberguy. Go to school.
Yeah, well, I go to school, of course, but like I think football, or as you Americans might say, soccer, is really popular in the UK, and I like playing that a lot, as well as rugby. I used to play a lot of rugby, but Hearthstone's taken up most of my time, so I've quit that, and I just play a lot of football right now.
Oh, that's cool. Numberguy?
Yeah, I just play a bunch of Hearthstone. I don't really have any hobbies at the moment. Sometimes I go drinking with my friends, but that's about it.
God, that's right. The drinking age is much lower in Denmark than it is. Well, actually, everywhere in the world is much lower than America. So, I shouldn't really be singling out your country. Good stuff. Good stuff. There's a question from Rasmil PvP. He says, Hype's Miracle Rogue deck from WCA is inconsistent with so many few minions. I'm guessing because there's a lot of spells. Is there any consistency? Is this the same consistency issues as using an aggro deck? Did you guys get to see the Miracle deck that Hype ran at all?
Yes, I saw it.
Yeah, it was with Arcane Golem, I think. I saw a list of it.
Yeah.
Double Sinister Strike, double Cold Bloods, double Conceal. Like, just a lot of spells, and going away from what made Miracle consistent in the first place with, the double Farseers and double Drakes and whatnot.
I think that deck's really suited for, like, the really late game oriented decks because they can't deal with that much damage coming in early. On like Paladin, for example, I guess you have Holy Light, but not many people run 2 Holy Light. Like you saw me running 2 Holy Light. I think I'm like the exception, but most like they have Guardian of Kings and what's it called? Lay on Hands as their main healing source, and I think that the hyped Miracle is just too fast and does too much damage, and you just can't heal it up.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that's a good assessment of its consistency. Numberguy, did you want to comment about that at all?
I don't understand why you shouldn't just play the other Miracle Rogue, the Miracle Rogue with like Violet Teacher and so on. Like, I think that deck might be just as good if you're not going to face aggro anyway, and it might be even better if you're going to face something like Handlock. So I'm a bit surprised to see him bring this version, but I'm definitely going to test it out and see how consistent it actually is.
All right, cool. I think that's a good. I think that's a good way to answer the question because it's more of a wait and see thing. It might be a good tournament meta call, but it might not be overall the best thing to play from this point on. So it could work once for hyped, and maybe he has to make adjustments. Who knows? This was the next question we'll be taking from Vinometh. He asks, with the competitiveness of handlocks in tournaments, will we start seeing more freeze mages again?
It's quite interesting. Freeze mage. Well, I guess it's good against handlock because they're tapping and they're just helping you get closer to your mark where you can just throw out all your spells and kill them. But I think it's only good against handlock at the moment because, like, there's been a few warriors and like warriors is just insta loss for freeze mage, and I think the other late game decks beat freeze mage as well. I might be wrong about that because I'm an aggro player, but I think paladin does pretty well against freeze mage, like because you just hold all your heals until they like Alex Strauss or something, and then like, mage just runs out of burst. And druid, of course, if you run combo, I think that beats freeze mage pretty easily. I think a more suitable type of mage deck would be like Hype's mage deck or like the Fishu's aggro mage if you were trying to play a mage in like this sort of meta.
Yeah, not to mention that that's another deck that you can use to beat the priest, the Hype's mage, because it runs Twilight Drakes with duplicates, and you also have giants. So there's ways for you to exhaust priest's resources for sure, and make that matchup pretty favorable. So if you're struggling with priest, give Hype's mage a try, but it is a little tricky, so proceed with caution, if you will. Did you want to answer that at all, Numberguy, about freeze mages?
Yeah, I would say that as long as we will still see Honda, I don't think freeze mage will be, because Honda didn't die. Like everyone was like, Honda's going to die with this patch, and what happened was Honda didn't die. So as long as Honda is still sticking around, I don't think freeze mage will become viable anytime soon. Also, Lotheb was also a really huge nerf to freeze mage, so that's also a disadvantage.
Oh man, that is true. Lotheb is such a problem, especially if you play Alexstrasza on a board. And say it's a board that already has a few taunts, so Alexstrasza can't do anything, like Sludge Belcher. And then they drop Lotheb right afterwards and pop your ice block. You're in trouble. So yeah, for sure, Lotheb's a problematic card. Okay, cool. So let's take a couple more before we wrap up the show here. We're still doing pretty good on time. This is an interesting question. I feel like it's definitely one worth answering considering your guys' age. They ask, now that you guys are kind of in competitive Hearthstone, will you guys consider it a future career for you? Or, I'm summarizing it, or do you feel like it's more of just kind of like a thing that you're doing on the spare time of school and something you're interested in now, but you're not really sure if you'll continue to dive into it?
Oh, yeah, sure. It's been at the back of my head. I think everyone wants like a job just playing video games all day and like making money off it, but of course I'm gonna like still go to school, and like I'm only 16, so I've got a lot of years of school left, so I'm not thinking of like a job that soon, I guess.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a lot to say on this topic, but Numberguy, you can go as well.
Okay, so actually, I got in a pretty big dilemma recently because, as you all know, I qualified for BlizzCon, but basically, I realized that if I go to BlizzCon, they announced that that I will be in the United States for an entire school week, and basically, I saw at my schema and my schedule, and if I go to BlizzCon for the entire week, I will basically get kicked out of school because in Denmark we have very strict rules about detention and you need to show up. So I really need to make a choice between school and BlizzCon, and I don't think it will surprise anyone that I, of course, chose the BlizzCon match. So yeah, I'm going to drop out of school pretty soon.
Wow.
That is.
Whoa, man! I was not prepared for that.
No, it's like
my school actually like was excited I'm going and actually encouraged me. And
Well,
yours
it's
is,
not
like,
my
the
school
exact
that makes
opposite.
the rules. It's like the government that makes the rules, and that's like how the rules is in Denmark. And like I don't know, I just have to accept it, and I already made my decision, and I'm really happy for my decision, and hopefully I'm going to have an awesome time playing Hearthstone the next year.
Well, yeah, I hope so. So let me. This has all of a sudden become the most interesting topic so far. So if you're dropping out of school, you can't just go back, or do you have to do the year over, or is it like you
So
messed up, don't ever come back to our education system, get out of Denmark? Like, how does this
no,
work here?
no, okay. So the way it's working is that I'm going to that I applied for special leave, which means that I can start over next year, and then I won't be like I will only be missing like 3 months. And then when I start over, I will only have to do 1 year of school, and then I will be done, and I can continue university next year. So if I
Okay. Okay.
at next summer finds out, okay, Hearthstone didn't work out for me, I'm not going to be a pro Hearthstone player, I will just take my last year of high school. I will just retake it, and nothing will be lost. I will only have lost like 1 year, and I'm already pretty young for being in my last year in high school, so it's really not a problem. Like I will just be the same age as everyone else, and no one will ever notice it. Like in Denmark, it's very common that people take 1 year off from time to time, and that's basically just what I'm doing here. So,
Man, Europe is awesome. Good Lord. I don't think I could ever get away with something like that, at least from my background. Good for you, man. Pursuing your dream and having the flexibility to do so. Like I understand if it's like, you're 35 and you're still not doing anything and you're like trying to pursue a dream and you're still leeching off your family and whatnot. Then it'd be like, oh, come on, man, maybe you need to actually do something else. But hey, if you're young and you have the means, it's only 3 months of school delay. I don't think that's actually that big of a deal. Then you're making it sound like, oh, like I'm leaving school completely to do this. It's just you're taking.
no,
a
you can
break.
always get back into school. School
Okay.
loves me. I can always go back.
Okay. Well, definitely a little dramatic wording or phrasing there, but hey, props to you. We'll take like one or two more questions. I didn't actually get to look at chat to see if there's any more. Do you guys see any questions you want to take on?
There's a question here in Skype. It's how do you make the transition from ladder to tournament play? I'm a multiple-time Legend player, but having a hard time in tournament because it's so different. Yeah, I'm going to say that it's in the Skype chat. I'm going to say that on ladder, it's really a lot about looking what people will play, what other people play in ladder, and then just adjusting to that. And in tournaments, it's more or less the same, except you have less information about what other people are playing. So you need to make a better read about other people's decks. And once you made that read, you also need to find a game plan. Like, say you're going to a best-of-5 tournament where you bring 4 decks and have 1 ban, then you need to have a game plan of, like, what I'm going to ban, what I'm going to open with, why am I going to open with this classes, what I'm going to do if I lose with class A, what class am I going to follow up with. It's really about, like, having a great idea and then just having the right idea as well and just sticking with it.
Yeah,
same.
absolutely.
I think like ladder is completely different from tournaments because like ladder, like one deck could dominate the whole ladder and you can win like every game with that deck. But most tournaments now consist of this like one like class ban system. So that deck you were playing in ladder could just be banned out completely. So you have to like play other decks that you're like not familiar with. So you have to have a lot of practice with multiple decks and just get to know a lot of matchups. And also, I think a lot of research is nice for tournaments as well. Like you can research your opponents and like see what they've played in the past, what they're likely to play, and you have to really predict what what deck they're gonna start with, so you can counter that deck. And if you either win or lose a deck, you have to think about what they're going to bring next and what you're going to bring to counter if you lost.
Yeah, I think what actually separates a lot of the to borrow a term that's overused often in gaming, to separate the good players from the best players is the ability to predict what your opponent will bring based off his lineup, based off your preparation, and being able to have like anticipate it. Because the first game in the series, everyone knows. I mean, as much as winning the last game is important, winning the first game is super important for the entire series. It just sets the entire tone of how you're able to play the rest of the series. This is assuming last hero standing is going to be staying around forever. But every player I talk to, whether it's like Tides, Strife Crow, RDU, they all have one thing in common, is that they're incredibly good at predicting how their opponents are going to play out the series, starting from the first game. They're able to like, okay, well, he has to play this in order to do that, and then based off this, I should pick this and whatnot. And then it's like really complicated, but it's very impressive. In fact, this is part of the reason why I felt like Firebat would do well in the upcoming tournament, because I talked to Firebat once and he showed me a spreadsheet of like every single player that he faced in the tournament, which was like 10 plus opponents, and like what classes they had, and then what was the likelihood, and then he filled out results, and he was like, he only guessed like 1 or 2 people wrong out of like the 10 opponents in terms of like how the series would progress. And like that kind of information really helps you like level up as a tournament player compared to just ladder, where it's just like you queue up and you just adapt to whatever you see like right there that's given to you. So if you're trying to make that jump to the tournament scene, at least from what I've been able to gather from some players, work on the series play, like play with friends, queue up, try to see what works best. And that first game is often the most important. I'm not sure if these guys disagree or agree with me, but that's what I've gotten from some players too, from behind the scenes.
Yeah, I fully agree with you.
All right, good stuff. Good stuff. Frodan's not completely wrong all the time. Cool. And I promise to stop smacking the desk. This is an interesting question from Stefuncio. He asked, what do you think is the hardest deck to play in general, as in the most complicated?
That's a really hard question to answer as well. I think like all decks are actually really hard to play, like to play perfectly and not to make a mistake. But probably skill-wise, one of like the really late game decks where a lot of decision making is going on, like probably like late game Paladin or like Handlock, because you like normally have like a giant hand, so you have a lot of options, and like each of the options could turn the tide of the game, just like that. Like one card you play could like win you the match or lose you the match. So I think like either Handlock or really late game Paladin is one of the hardest decks to play.
All right, Numberguy.
Yeah, I really have to agree with Greensheep here. Handlock can be extremely hard to play. I also think that in Miracle Rogue, you're often represented with a lot of options, and all of the options often seem to be more or less the same or equally good. But when you go back and rewatch the game, you will realize that some option had always been better than the other option. And but when you're playing the game, you often don't have time to think about all your options. So Miracle Rogue is also really difficult to play. And also I want to say Priest, because the same late game as like if with late game Paladin, like one single mistake can just really, really screw you up in the end.
Yeah, pre-Naxxramas Priest was really difficult for a while. I mean, hell, even pre-Naxxramas Paladin was really difficult. But that was because they were bad, I suppose. Not because it was actually like super complicated to play. It was just like you had to narrowly escape every single game by the skin of your teeth in order to win. I would toss in the mage that Hyped plays as pretty difficult to play, like, because it's not intuitive, and like some decks, if you just get the general sense of how to play it, there's games where it can play itself. Like even though Handlock is complicated on certain points of the game, if you have like a decent matchup, the strategy is pretty similar, right? Just tap till turn 4, play your threat. If you can't respond, push for damage, and if you can, just clear the board and like just take charge initiative and kill them with big creatures. And like sometimes it just happens where they don't have respond to Mountain Giant. You faceless it. You're pushing in for damage. Oh look, I Soulfire and I win. Hype Stage is like you don't have Fireball, so like you don't have like the sometimes easy auto wins where it's like, oh, I just have lethal. You just like you have to plan very specifically. Duplicates are not easy because then like if you don't plan it correctly, you might mess it up, and then it's actually really tricky to play. And then Hype laughs because every time I talk to him about it, like how hard it is to play, he's just like, oh, it's really easy for me because I create the deck, so it makes sense to me. And then like other guys like Gar and all them are like, well, how the hell do you play this scenario, stuff like that. So it's cool, like the fact that someone can create a deck pretty unique to their own play style and other people don't get. But yeah, I really like that deck, but for the life of me, I still have exactly 0 wins on ladder with it. And I've queued like so many games. Me and Savitz played like 8 or 9 games on ladder the night before the 20-hour broadcast, and like we like played it together. Like we like talk about each move and like the benefits of it, and like went through it, and we lost every single one. And we're like, how does this deck ever win? But I don't know. Like the fact that me and Savitz didn't get it, and this guy clearly does, was really impressive for me. All right, well, I think that's a pretty good note to end, unless you guys want to take any more questions you see in the chat. Do you want to answer any more before we go?
Well, there's not really any more Hearthstone-related ones, to be honest. A lot of random questions, like, Greensheep, what do you usually get from Greg's? Like, I don't go to Greg's.
Is that what is Greg's in the UK?
It's like a bakery shop. Like I normally go to like Sayers and get like a sausage roll or something.
Okay, cool. Well, I think that's I think with that we'll just wrap up the show because there's not really much to talk about other than what Greensheep shops for in his spare time. So let's thank I want to thank everybody for coming on the show. Thank you, Greensheep and Numberguy. Let's give some last comment, shouts, and thank yous before we dismiss. So Greensheep, you go first here.
Well, shout out to my teammates Blackout and Cook My Sock, and to the all of Team Dignitas. They're all really awesome, and also to all our sponsors: Alienware, Intel, Western Digital, Scan, 3D System, Iama, Be Quiet, HyperX, Twitch, Creative, QPad, and Multiplay. It's quite a lot.
Well, there you go. All right. Numberguy, you don't have any sponsors to shout out to.
No, I don't have any sponsors.
To real people.
Yeah, I just want to thank Carlos and Tyler for helping me getting to where I am today. Also, I want to thank Behirat for being an amazing player and learning me a lot about the game. I also want to say a huge thank you to the DreamHack crew, which really made DreamHack Stockholm an amazing experience for me. It was really amazing being there. I also want to thank Blizzard for making this amazing game and for making BlizzCon, which I'm really, really looking forward to.
Absolutely. You have Blizzard to thank for dropping out of school. That's definitely a good way to shift the blame. As for me, I want to give a shout out to the ESL people who are making the tournament this weekend. They're trying really hard to make it good, so hopefully you guys check it out. Which, again, if you're in the New York area, the event is free, and you also get some Hearthstone packs for if you're the first 1,500 people to show up. So make sure to check it out. You can find more information at Battle.net. Also, I want to thank DreamHack for doing a great event. I don't know if anybody will be able to match level production, or at least fun for me personally, but I look forward to people who try to. And I also want to give a shout out to Doa and Reels, who I'll be casting with, and I think they'll do great. A lot of people don't know much about Doa unless you've watched the OGN Masters, but it should be a good time. So make sure to tune in and check us out there. That's pretty much it. Thank you so much for everybody who's been watching. Make sure to hit the follow button on the bottom of the channel so that way you guys know when the stuff goes live. I do know that there's been some questions about tabletop, but That's Admirable is in China and he's been practicing very hard for BlizzCon. He'll be back with more content soon. More information can be found on the feed at iHeartYou.com. And again, the VODs will be released later today on YouTube, as well as all of the feeds that you guys are used to. So thank you so much for watching. This has been Turn 2 episode number 37 with Frodan, Numberguy, and Greensheep. We'll see you guys next time.